Now, Donald Trump has taken to Truth Social with a deadly warning for Iran.
Yes, the United States president says a massive armada is on the way, heading to the country with speed and violence. He added the next attack will be far worse than Operation Midnight Hammer, when the US launched strikes on Iranian nuclear sites back in June of last year.
Well, right now we're joined by our national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, what more can you tell us?
Well, it's just interesting to compare that statement we've just had in from Donald Trump in the last couple of hours with what he said before Operation Midnight Hammer last June. Very similar language, because he said on the 12th of June last year, we remain committed to a diplomatic resolution to the Iran nuclear issue. My entire administration, he says, has been directed to negotiate with Iran. What he's saying today is that while that massive armada is heading to Iran, that they're willing and ready to make a deal, using the exact same language he used before launching that very precise strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities with those B-2 bombers that flew out of the United States. He may not need to require on that option this time, but it's very interesting to compare very similar deal being mooted and then a strike following soon after language. It does feel as though it's a matter of when, not if, for a US strike on the Iranians.
And of course, the Iranians have now put out a statement reportedly saying they don't want to negotiate, that they are ready to respond, not quite with fire and fury, but words to that effect.
Well, that's what they're implying, that they'd be ready to respond. But that is fighting talk from a country that has basically had its high and mid-altitude air defences totally obliterated by the United States.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponize against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Last year, and of course in that 12-day war with Israel, they only were able to respond with a gesture of missile strikes for the most part, rather than a full-on strike that could have really decimated any Israeli or American assets. Just even as we're speaking now, it does appear that there's more American firepower moving into the area, including a spy plane that's not often seen in Qatar, one of the US air bases in the region. We've got that USS Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, now approaching the Iranian Gulf, that area as well, just off Oman. So there's been a noticeable increase, I think, in the arrival of US government military planes into the Middle East. But this build-up has been going on for a few weeks now. We've also seen the RAF last week move our fighter jets towards Qatar as well. 12 more fighter jets flew out of the UK towards Jordan last week as well. The assets are in place, really, if they want to do this. And in Israel last week, and continuing to their coverage this week as well, They keep repeating this line in the Israeli media, basically saying, our preparations are ready should there be an attack. Oh, we've got a few more preparations to make, but it's there now. A tiny more set of preparations have been concluded now. It almost feels as though in Israel they're itching for this strike to happen. There was some reporting a couple of weeks ago suggesting that Netanyahu didn't want it to go ahead because Israel wasn't ready. It seems that that's not the case. They were rather concerned that America wasn't ready, that it did not have sufficient firepower in the area to have what the president favours, reportedly, which is a decisive strike, enough to totally take out this regime once and for all, rather than to weaken it.
Where would that strike?
Well, IRGC commanders, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Ayatollah himself, 86-year-old man, repeating the strategy seen against the Iranian proxies such as Hezbollah, where Israel targeted very much its leadership first and foremost, and then its wider operations. It's still bombing in southern Lebanon now, the Israeli Air Force, trying to counter remnants of Hezbollah south of the Litani River. So it would be senior military and government leaders, which would then, according to sort of the hopes of the Israelis and Americans in the area, lead to a resurgence of those protesters who have sacrificed their lives. It's suggested perhaps up to 30,000 of them have died. And there is, I think, a sense of betrayal among Iranians. When you speak to the diaspora around the West, a lot of them saying, you told us that help was coming, that you were locked and loaded. That undoubtedly motivated people to take into the streets to confront the Islamist military and security forces in Tehran and dozens of other towns and cities across the Iranian spaces and indeed some of the proxy areas across that Shia crescent as well. So it inspired people to go out and stand up against the regime, and the help did not come afterwards. Yeah. I think with Trump now talking about a deal, it's very interesting to compare the language he used last year before that strike, and we could see that repeat again.
OK, so earlier we spoke to Major General Chip Chapman and he talked about the Chagos Islands now being useful. What is it that would happen there? How would the Americans make use of that?
Well, they've got B-1 and B-2 bombers that have flown out of there in the past. When the 2001 invasion of Afghanistan took place, Diego Garcia was central to those bombing missions. A lot of the long-range bombing that took place launched out of that British Indian Ocean territory. It's a realistic possibility it would be used again, but the US has expanded its capabilities in the last 25 years since that happened, and they no longer necessarily need to rely on Diego Garcia as much as before, especially when they have a carrier strike group, that serious armada, as it's being referred to, just off the coast of Iran, and indeed the B-2 bombers that could fly out of the United States.
Although what we've learnt with Ukraine and to a lesser extent with the Houthis is asymmetrical warfare is now the norm. I mean, are aircraft carriers now the unsinkable fortresses that they were decades past? Perhaps not. Perhaps islands are actually now more important.
Yeah, and that's why we don't need an aircraft carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean, because we have Cyprus, Britain's own unsinkable aircraft carrier. But I'd just say to that point of the assets available, it's about sort of the number of Tomahawk missiles that they have and the counter air battery defences that the US has as well. The jets available on that platform would be enough to intercept any missiles that Iran fires back towards Israel and indeed US bases in the wider region. The RAF is forward deployed. When you look at the assets that we can tell are there, there is such a significant build-up. I can't see the Iranians being able to...
Charlie, before we let you go, when you say the RAF is forward deployed, could British servicemen be involved in this action?
Absolutely, yeah, it's likely.
All right. Charlie Peters, thank you very much. Wow. We'll stay with